Topo Chico, apparently I think it's a Mexican-based, like a alcohol brand,
Correct.
right? If we move up, I think it'll say it as well. Okay, so it's
So
sparkling water
it's
brand,
yes, it's sparkling water brand.
right?
Correct.
It's again 125 years old, so huge
Correct.
heritage. And
Correct.
the illustrations, they caught my eye completely.
Yes.
They were done so well, and even with the logo, if you look at the logo, we have our common notions of the logo should be clean. The logo should be, there should be a slap on test. The logo
Yeah.
should be recognizable and memorable so that a person
Yeah.
can scribble it 5 seconds later. All
Yeah.
that works, all that works. But
Yeah.
with this one, you won't be able to draw it 5 seconds later, but I'll
Yeah.
show it to you 5 years later. You'll be able to recognize it's Topo Chico.
Yep. So this is, I don't know, Bratin, this is what number episode, but this is maybe our third or fourth recording.
Right.
And today's recording is going to be a very fun one. It's going to be different. And it's titled What's So Great About Blank. And it has to do with different branding case studies. What I like to do, and I've said this before as well, and I want to share it again. What I like to do is my motto is I learn from the best. And I want to take a look at the work that the top agencies in the world have done in
Mm-hmm.
terms of branding, in terms of, you could take an example of UX if you're interested in that. You could take an example of how products are designed, all of it. Take a look at what they did, what were their techniques, and what is something that we could pull from that.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we see something done really well and we analyze it, then we're able to see the qualities of it, and we're able to then learn from that and bring that into our own work. So
Right.
that's my whole thing with this, and that's what I want to lead this conversation with. I'm excited to hear how you're doing.
Yes, I'm
How's
doing
everything
good.
been for you?
I'm doing good. Things are going well, and this is such a fun idea, such an awesome idea. I think this is one of the best ways to learn, which is learning from the best work out there so that you can understand why it's great. And that's what we're doing today. In this
Yes,
episode, probably we'll focus mostly on branding projects and we'll
correct.
figure out the greatness within them. So I'm super excited.
Correct. Okay. So the way this has worked is, Bratin, you have chosen three projects. I have chosen three projects. In total, we'll be going through about
Yes.
six case studies, plus one from five. I thought six was a good number to be at, and it'll give us enough to talk about, actually. So the very first case study that we're going to go over is a Target internal brand. It is called Up&Up, and this was chosen by myself. And I'll explain to you, Bratin, why I chose this. But let me just
Sure.
give you an idea first of what is going on with this brand. So Up&Up, I remember, and this was like maybe 2010, 2011 when it was
Mhm.
launched. It was actually launched 15 years ago, right? So it's been about, 2009, 2010 is probably when it was launched, Up&Up.
Mhm.
Um, I've shopped at Target my whole life. That was my neighborhood grocery store of, anything and everything, technology, video games, clothing, everything you get from Target. And it's like a superstore for us. So for one thing Target does really well, and it's similar to what Amazon does too, right? Amazon has Amazon Essentials, and that you might be familiar with. And
Right.
they basically create a alternative version of what would rather be just an expensive product made by a specific brand. They make an
Mhm.
alternative version of that, and for example, they called it Up&Up. So in this picture you can see they sell paper towels, they sell training pads for pets, they sell cotton swabs, they sell cotton balls. They sell sandwich bags. They sell anything and everything that is a household item under the
Mhm.
umbrella brand of Up&Up. And this is
Right.
completely internal brand. The reason I bring this up today is because it's a funny thing. Up&Up started back then as the cheaper alternative to, Kleenex for tissues
Mhm.
or Bounty for paper towels. They were the very cheap alternative to that, the entry level for anybody that did not want to pay, what was brand level prices, we can say, for some of those items. Um,
Right.
but 15 years later, they go through sort of a refresh. and a facelift. They've introduced this um, the very colorful palette to their brand,
Mhm.
and it's really an extended library that you can put two colors together of any different shade and kind, and they just work. Like I love how this teal works with this kind of brighter yellow, and that same
Right.
a similar yellow of that is used over here with an orange background.
Mhm.
And completely opposite of that, you have this sort of a what I would call what kind
Like
of
a
a yellow
faded
would
yellow.
you call that? What would
Faded
you
yellow, yes.
yeah, right. A very different kind of yellow with the lighter purple as sort of that background. So what's happened here is a funny story is that they started out 15 years ago as a cheap alternative. Over the past
Mhm.
15 years, they have built so much trust, so much longevity, so much top of mindedness that they have become the expensive brand now. And now, if you go to Target today and you try to buy something that is of Up and Up, the price for this product is on par with actual branded items like Bounty, like Kleenex, like
Mhm.
Colgate, things like that. So what's happened over the past 15 years, they've become a brand in themselves. So what Target has had to do is actually introduce another low-priced entry-level brand to
Mhm.
replace what this was 15 years ago, and they call it deal worthy. Now,
Yeah,
Bratin, what you're going to see is you're going to see a very a vast difference of the kind of packaging that's happening here. So,
absolutely.
right, what do you see here as the main tones of the packaging?
First thing that comes up, of course, is the Target logo, as we know,
Yeah,
right? It's pretty much visible. The name itself, deal worthy. And I think with this one, what Target is wishing to do is to keep this one, like even after 15 years, I don't think deal worthy will become a branded company. With
yeah,
this one, they are willing to keep that layer strong. But with Up and
yes,
Up, somewhere I feel in the back of their head, they had this that if we consistently build top of mind with the consumerism culture, the e-commerce culture booming, we should be able to create enough top of mind to create an internal brand that works so well. And that too in so many other verticals, right?
that's correct. That's correct. And that's exactly what's happened. And their idea of Up and Up, it's such a cool case study to look at because that's what happens when you have strong packaging, you have strong brand awareness backing all of this up. And over
Right.
time, people have just come to accept Up and Up. Like when I go to Target, I don't look for Bounty. I look for Up and Up because I know that is going to be the cheaper alternative. And I'm paying for paper towels. Why do I need to pay that much extra for something
Right.
like Bounty? I'd rather because paper towels here are expensive, you know. They're like, I don't know, if you have like 8 rolls for like 16, $24,
That's
somewhere in that
expensive.
range. Very expensive. And it's unnecessary. This is, something you use once and you throw away. So that's why people always want to look at, what is the cheaper alternative? And like you said, the packaging here is very different, right? They have that sort of the Target logo has always been very popular. It's this circular
Mhm.
form, and you see that the with the red dot, right, used within the deal worthy logo. But the overall packaging here is not extremely colorful. It's actually rather based in white
It's
and
like a minimum viable packaging.
exactly a minimum viable packaging gives you the idea of this is a cheap product, a cheap alternative versus the
Right.
more cutesy and highly branded item is Up and Up
Mhm.
now, and that is what the brand has become. And so they give this a facelift. They put this on a pedestal of its own, and then they
Right.
introduced a new entry level item, a new
Mhm.
entry level brand to replace the empty space that now Up and Up has left over. So
Right.
I just look at this case study and we'll post these links in the description below that so that people can read. But you got these items, you got anything and everything from chargers, phone cases to socks, to
Mhm.
soap, right? So you're selling everything and it's all a part of this. And so I look at this as a really interesting case study as what happens when you put enough time and effort in a brand that it just levels up.
Right.
And people grab onto that brand. And over
Mhm.
time, then you have to introduce something that is of lower quality that is going to take its place. I think that's an incredible case study in its own.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to share this with you, and get your thoughts on it. So what are your kind of final thoughts before we move on to the next one?
Right. The final thoughts that comes up is, and I had gone to the Target website to see many more other internal brands that they have. I think this is a strategy that was kind of inevitable because of the lower margins of the industry. And so Amazon does it on the e-commerce front, and I'm pretty sure other brands do it as well. But it's a great strategy because again, you have the distribution. Why not make a great product and position it side by side, and then just compete? And over time, you will win because it's a good proposition.
Correct. Absolutely correct. I love how you bring a more business perspective into this. You talk about the unit economics, um, and you bring that sort of a quick thinking, right? And I like that a lot, which is why I enjoy our conversations always. So let's go to the next one. Give me your
Just a
first
second.
pick. What would you like to talk about?
Yes, just a second.
Okay.
Uh, would it be better if I record my screen as well? I think that can give us some extra footage or something. If something
Yes.
messes up.
Yes, absolutely.
Just
So,
forgot that I can record as well.
correct. Go ahead.
Okay. So let's go to the next one, I think. Let's start with the National Geographic one.
Okay. Walk me through.
Sure. So, of course, we don't need an introduction for Chamayev, Geismar, and Habib. They have done they're probably one of the most famous people in the branding and logo design space. National Geographic, America 250, and many more, right? I think Times was done by them, and the Chase Bank logo. So they have done phenomenal work. With this one, with National Geographic, the thing that is so special, it's something that's special with Target as well, which is something we covered, is that you take some of the simplest shapes, some of the most common things around us, and you brand it to a huge level that nobody else can ever come close to it, right? Whenever now you can't use four colors, it's Windows. Now you can't use a yellow rectangle, it's National
Yeah,
Geographic. Or anytime you use a rectangle, people will kind of allude to that. It's so
correct.
simple, so balanced, but works so well because in one frame of mind, the rectangle kind of is a boundary. It tells us about the boundaries of the world that National Geographic explores, so to say. But also, it's open and it's open for interpretation. It's a hollow rectangle, so to say.
Correct.
And they've used it as frames. They have used it as typographic elements. I love this branding always because it's so
Correct.
ubiquitous to us.
Yeah. I'm so glad you bring this up. Shermayev, Geismar, and Haviv have always been a big inspiration for me. I remember watching Sagi Haviv's TED Talk,
Right.
where he talked about, I think this was one of the projects that he had mentioned.
Mhm.
And then there were others too, other videos that I've seen him on the future as well. That's where I was introduced to this agency and the
Same.
level of work that they've done. The National Geographic story is so interesting because this logo that we're seeing right now is an evolution of what they had since the beginning. And I remember another story that I think Sagi Haviv talked about, which is if you pull up National Geographic magazines, because this was a magazine subscription
Right.
service in its kind of more beginning stages, and you get all these examples. The original National Geographic logo was this sort of serif font with the
Mhm.
national a little bit bigger than geographic. And maybe this is just the treatment that was given to the magazine covers, but
Yep.
still, this is what existed before.
They were going
But
for the proper magazine look.
correct, correct. And Bratin, what do you see around the border of every single one
Right.
of these?
The quintessential yellow frame. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Isn't it incredible? And
Right.
they say it's 132 years of National Geographic magazine. So
Mhm.
this is a brand with extreme heritage, right? This is
Right.
a brand that has kind of built itself in the science media space.
Mhm.
Um, so what did Sagi Haviv and team do is they took this border and they said, why don't we pull out uh, the most essential item and object that people have come to recognize National Geographic for, and it is this yellow rectangle, and they brought it into the logo itself, right? Along with the typography change as well, and they created this, right? So from that rectangle, it alludes back to, like you said, it alludes back to the magazine era of National
Right.
Geographic, because now it's become a highly digitized media agency or a media company, right? So that's one part of it. And another part of it is, I remember Sagi Habib's, one of his greatest analogies that I always think back on, and it's stuck in my head, is the idea of the vessel. So a logo, a symbol can, over time, it can become a vessel for all the emotions and the feelings and the attributes that a customer or anybody in, the worldwide audience might come to connect with. So all of those emotions that you used to feel when maybe you used to live in that era of this magazine coming in through the mail, and you used to open it and see and read through what it was talking about, and this, all of that emotion is now just captured within this yellow rectangle. And Bratin, tell me, how difficult must have it been for them to sell a yellow bordered rectangle to National Geographic as their clients?
Oof, that wouldn't have been easy for sure. But when you look back, pulling something from their heritage itself, it's such a clever. It feels so genuine from their
Yes,
part, from CGH's part, and they've they knew what they were going for. They knew the internet era was coming. We need scalability with the logo, and a yellow rectangle. It's the easiest form of logo to make. It's not
that's
unique,
right.
but you can make it unique because nobody else would be able to then make it ever. Same
That's
goes
right.
for Windows or Target. When you have done the Target logo itself, then nobody else can do it again.
Yeah,
And they've, I mean, you can paint it on a mural, you can use graffiti, you can use an art brush, and we'll all reach the same results. So
correct.
that's why it has. That's what I was thinking as well. Like the expansion of the brand identity is just so paramount.
Correct. And 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 I think the logo itself is
Mhm.
entirely simple, right? It can, like you said,
Yeah.
it can live in the digital age. It can go on and live in the physical spaces as well, as they've shown here, as they've
Mhm.
shown over here too, right? So this is an extremely versatile logo, and it's not just the font anymore. It is the combination of the word and the rectangle itself. So this is an incredible case study to look at. I'm really glad you chose this. This is like what I would call a textbook case study that
Right.
everyone who's learning branding, everyone who's completing branding projects in their professional careers should take a look at and see, okay, what was done here that was so
Mhm.
interesting, and how did they end up even selling what others would call just a yellow rectangle to
Mhm.
these to this multi-billion dollar news broadcast media agency or a media
Last
company.
point. This also
Yes.
kind of contradicts the general ideas that we have for logos right now, at
Yeah.
least. We
Yeah.
hear a lot of people talking about uniqueness. You have to have a lot of versatility. It has to look like when you place it in front of other competitor logos, it should stand out, so to say, but it should also
Right.
be unique. With this
Right.
one, they just didn't care about it because, again, it's a brand. Like when we are naming our children, we don't think, okay, he'll be having these friends, the friends' names will be these. So let's
Yeah.
name him this. That doesn't
Yeah.
work, right?
Yeah.
We love our brand. We have a heritage of 100 plus years. You just extract something out of it, position it, and
Yes.
let people enjoy it for years. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. That's how it works. This is what you would call an evolution project more than a
Mm-hmm.
rebranding. Just
Right.
take semblances of what was there and bring it into a new era. And nobody, I think, does this better than CGH.
Yeah.
So I thank you for
I
sharing
would
this
love to just
project.
be there, bite my nails on one
Yeah.
side of the boardroom,
Oh
watching them
yes.
convince.
Oh yes, we need more of that. I used to love when they did more a lot of videos with the Future channel,
Mm-hmm.
as well as their own. They have some behind the scenes videos. They did one video, I think, on the 2016 US presidential campaign
Right.
logo for Hillary Clinton. So they showed the very different iterations and what brought them to the one that they chose. So yes, I think we need more content from agencies out there that are world class to show us, peek behind the curtain of how they actually get things done. I'll take us to the next one then, Bratin, and this is of a more of a modern studio. They're called Primary, and what they do is basically they sell brand sprints. So you get a world-class brand built within a 1 week time period. They deal, I think, mostly with startups. And with startups, speed is the number one priority. And anything to get you up to market, or anything that can make you go to market quickly is going to be a valuable proposition. So this is one of those studios that does this. They call it a brand sprint. And I really like this one example. It's called Heron. And I believe this is a financial product. It is a digital investment platform for investing in private credit. Right. So another thing about this case study is from right off the bat, you have this introduction that gives you an idea and a context more than just the visuals, right? At times when we're building our portfolios, we only want to have the visuals, but the context is very important. So that's something that they have here, which is great to see. But getting into the actual logo and the identity, the Heron logo is basically just a word mark with, I think the H is of most importance. It's different, right? It has a little bit of that organic, natural feel to it that I think they brought back in the sort of illustration style that they created for it. So what you're seeing here is a swan, right? And this is a private credit investment platform. This is finance that has captured sort of the imaginations that you would find in true nature, and they've brought that into it. I love the mock-ups of how they've balanced this serif font in a app UI. I think that's a very hard thing to do. And if when done well, right, this is an example of it done well. When done well, it looks beautiful. And I think it adds a little bit of that extra flavor that I think this is, because this is private credit, I would imagine they would have higher ticket clients. And those higher ticket clients are looking for a more world-class experience, a more lucrative experience, an exquisite experience through the app. And that's something that they get with the font style itself. And adding to that, you have this sort of swan illustration that is going to keep coming up in many different areas, including the app itself, including these sort of magazine physical mock-ups that they're showing here. And again, like you're going to see that. And once again here in sort of the social media imagery as well. So you tell me, like, what do you think about this overall brand so far?
Right. I went through this one, figured out Heron, the name, it's the bird actually.
Correct.
And if you think about it, as far as the logo mark is concerned, it's just a word mark, right? And
Correct.
the H is modified. Apart from that, it's a simple, like with light serifs on the side. It's super simple. It works.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the reason it's memorable is because how it has been able to balance the color palette.
Yes.
It's not a common color palette for a finance brand. That matte orange, right? That specific color of blues and the greens as well. The way
Correct.
they have been able to do it, kind of, if you have to think about it, the moment I say a Gucci or a Louis Vuitton or a Versace, a specific kind of visual comes into your mind. Versus when I say Celine or Brunello Cucinelli, it's a very quite luxury kind of feeling, or a Burberry, right? I think
Correct.
this one. This is for quite luxury, and as you said, it's for private credit, so that's their clientele as well. Pretty sure their clients are wearing Brunello Cucinelli probably.
Yeah.
And so it works perfectly. And that bird illustration, I think you can call it a mascot.
Yeah.
They've been able to use it as in various facets, like diversify your portfolio. The bird is looking in the water, and we've inverted the bird as W money. I think it's a super use of restraint on, because they have less time. It's a brand sprint, so restraint
Correct.
plays a super crucial role, and they have been able to find a key balance with this. I really like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Even within 1 week's time, Bratin, I don't know the exact, schedule of this project. Maybe sometimes it does go over that.
Mm.
But within 1 week's time, if we imagine doing this level of work is really impressive.
Yeah.
Um, like you said, the color palette is super tasteful. I think it
Mhm.
captures the target audience really well. It is
Right.
something that is different. It feels like they took inspiration. They went to a art history museum and they took inspiration from a classical painting, and that's where
Mhm.
their color palette came from, rather than us when we go to Adobe color palettes, right? Or we go to Tailwind UI generator, we go to Color Hexa, we go to all these online platforms, even Pinterest, to find new color palettes to use in a project. I really feel they sourced this from a non-conventional um, a non-conventional seed, and
Right.
that's where they brought it from. So I really feel like they went above and beyond, outside of the box, with the thinking behind that color palette, the way all of the colors work together, especially in the financial graphs, as you can see.
Mhm.
Like these are the exact same. That's the exact same gold used in the brand, the exact same green, and yet like the financial graphs done super well like this, the different UI patterns, it is really impressive. I really like this project a lot, and I could imagine myself using this product all day, every day, because it's just how beautiful this experience looks.
If
And
we go down to the next mock-up ones,
yes,
yeah. I mean, here, if you look at the bird and the shading on the, like the top wing, the white wing,
yes,
and the
yes,
blue wing as well, and the glass,
yes,
like the reflection of the glass, the water inside with the light brush strokes on the side. You're
yes,
surely right. They have taken inspiration from paintings for sure. It's
yes,
shaded that way. Brilliant.
absolutely. Absolutely. And again, like we talked about the private credit industry, what kind of target market do they have? Maybe these people are probably art collectors in some fashion, right?
Surely, yeah.
Or they're interested in the arts in that way, that they want to go on and collect in the future as they build up their capital. So the way that the
That's why the
swan
serif font
looks,
works as well.
exactly. Exactly. Everything just works together as a package. The painting illustration style just reminds me of something you would see on the wall when you walk into someone's mansion. So really incredible, incredible project. And big kudos to the primary studio team that is behind this to get this done within one
Right.
week, as they promise. It's unimaginably impressive. And I look up to this and I want to embody this sort of a branding project in my next run, right? This
Mhm.
is the level of quality that I want to create, and I'm inspired by this stuff. Um, and so like there's more stuff here. There's icons, there's patterns that we didn't even get into, but like I'll just say
Right.
this was an impressive project, and
Even from a business perspective, if you think
yes,
about it, if you have to like stand out in the fintech space and the credit space, super difficult because there's so many brands. But the moment you say that I'm not competing on the same parameters itself, then it's
right,
different. If your illustrations look like artwork, you have a color palette that's fashion inspired, art inspired, it just
right.
immediately grabs attention. And then, I mean, your CAC probably reduces for this.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And
Super.
it's a similar thing you see with Equinox, for example. When you look at gyms within the United States, you have Planet Fitness and you have Retro Fitness, you have other gyms like that that like to be very colorful, very outlandish. But Equinox comes in through the door and they start out being very crisp, being very minimalist, having that sort of high-tech luxury quality, and they charge prices differently for that too. So a lot of this is based on positioning, as you said, Bruton. Is it's a
Mhm.
business perspective. It's a strategy to position yourself in a completely different hemisphere than all the other people that are already there. And it's a big commitment. I'll tell you firsthand, I've seen this with clients. it's a big commitment for a client to get on board with something that is so very different from what you would expect to be done, for example, in the fintech space. Like this brand, from from looking at it for a while, it reminds me a lot of MailChimp. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, right?
Right.
But MailChimp has sort of this colorfulness, this sort of a natural feel with the chimp as the mascot instead of a heron or a swan.
That was
Um,
kind of the first time like that playfulness what was brought in the like the email space, newsletter
yes,
space. Right.
exactly. Within SaaS in general, I would say
In
too.
general, yeah.
And now we're seeing it appear in the fintech space too, which is really impressive. So yeah, again, we could
Pretty sure
talk.
they'll be able to take some, some risks in the UI part as well when they're making their app. They'll be
Oh
able to have
yeah,
a big text of a serif because like if the clientele is like that, then it's fine. It works.
yeah,
You don't have to think
correct,
about retention and
correct, correct. Yeah,
right.
yeah. These mockups are not
Yeah.
very detailed in the form of maybe what I would open my fintech app. What I would actually see is like
Mhm.
long menu lists of items. But in part, if this app does look like this, and I think they've done a really impressive job of telling the same story consistently across the touch points, which is a
Mhm.
really important thing, I think, Breton, that a lot of people miss out on is they'll do really well in the logo part, in the brand identity part, but when they have to bring it into the website or even that step
Mhm.
further into the product UI, they let go of a lot of those principles and they say, no, we're just going to keep it templatized. We're going to keep it to this standard, and not try to open up um, the brand as much as it should be across those touch points. So that's something, again, we're seeing that's done really well here.
Truly.
Okay. So what you would take, where should I take you next, Pratin? Which brand do we want to
Right.
look at?
Just a second, I'll have some water. Okay, next one, I think let's do Decathlon.
Sure. Is this a 2024 rebrand, if I'm not wrong?
Yeah, it's pretty recent. I think 2023 maybe.
Okay, correct.
All right, Decathlon now. Again, we all know the brand, we all love the brand. But when we say we, there was becoming like a generation gap between the perception of how the brand was working. If you
Correct.
scroll up, they have even written it in the context part that it's one of the biggest, it's probably the third, yeah, it's the third biggest sports company in the world with
Wow.
70 plus markets, 85 plus sports. That's a lot to cater to at different practice levels and touch points. But still, they have themselves mentioned it, so it must have been pretty bugging for them as well that the
Correct.
cultural impact in the sports were fainting out. Younger audiences were getting into more niche categories. Swimming, there was Speedo, there's Nike, and then there's Under Armour, and so many different brands have come up that are positioned for specific sport niches. And that's
Correct.
where Decathlon was kind of, you can say, falling off. And so, again, if you move up or you click on the more info, yeah, I mean, it's Wolf Hollins. Of course, they would have phenomenal storytelling. And they've,
Yes.
again, dived into the culture that started uh, Decathlon. It was a culture of unifying sports, much like
Correct.
you would say a Nike does, which
Correct.
is that, yes, Michael Jordan had worn out shoes, but you can as well. It's
Yes.
that kind of a feeling. It doesn't feel reserved. And
Yes.
they have talked about as well, right? This major insight combined with Decathlon's proud legacy of accessibility led to the development of a brand strategy which is anchored around the idea of wonder. And
Correct.
I think it works superbly well, which their new symbol, they're calling it L orbit.
Okay.
And it reflects like how you would explain will be like a new star, a North Star.
North
Yes,
Star.
move
Yeah.
people through the wonders of the sport. And even if you go to the logo, scroll up. Yeah, if you go to the logo or scroll down, I think there's some animation with the logo. It's super cool.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so this one was the previous one that we were accustomed to, the C and the A
Correct.
combining.
Correct.
And this was something that was that was reminiscent of kind of the previous times for us before the rebrand. But yeah, now that you have this logo animation, it kinds of points towards something. It's a pointy thing. It's a triangle, pointed triangle.
Right.
Of course, if you will go by shape psychology in our field of branding, it always talks about progress, prosperity, and new things. And
Correct.
it looks like a star for sure. So it's pointing upwards. It goes in, points upwards. You can, if you have to give a meaning to it, it feels like you can conjure up all your internal energy and kind of rise up. That's the feeling I get.
Correct.
And can move up further. They've refreshed the palette as well. It's a
Absolutely.
more vibrant one. It's a purple.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it purple. It's a, what would you call it?
It's sort of a bluish purple, I'd say.
Yeah,
A little
is
more
the
on the
word
blue
bergamot.
tone.
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
looks super cool. Even with the A, the all ages, all sports, you see that
Yes.
slant. We see it in
Yes.
other text specific things as well. The
That's
O is
right.
slanted as well,
I see it in the O. The O is so unique.
right? Because the O resembles the actual circular or the oval
Correct.
silhouette of the logo.
Correct.
Super cool.
Correct.
And big brands, big agencies always work on their typography. Wolf Hollins don't
Absolutely.
just turn to play the game, they change the game. That's the CEO
Absolutely.
saying it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Typographically,
Absolutely.
they have changed it completely.
Absolutely. And the level of motion graphics,
Mhm,
the mock-up that we are watching right now is incredible.
mhm,
Right. This is the world-class quality that you see
mhm.
here. Um, the way
Somewhere
that
you
they're
can also feel
presenting this.
the what should I call it? Should I call it the Nikeification of sports?
Sure. Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of feels
I'm
like
open
that,
to calling it that. I'm open
right?
to calling it.
From today, it's Nikeification,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. No, I agree. I agree with you. It's sort of that, okay, Nike has the word mark too, but obviously the
Mhm,
swoosh has just taken over the world.
right.
They've introduced sort of what feels like a swoosh, but it's really
Mhm,
like what I see is like I see someone running a lap around a mountain.
right.
That's kind of what I see. And I like that it's a little bit different, but it has
Right.
that quality to it. And I think as we saw the original logo, it was just the word mark itself as a
Mhm,
decathlon, as like a stamp, right?
mhm,
Um, and the reason why you introduce an icon is so that it can work in these smaller spaces right here, right? So it can work in
Even the previous Decathlon logo was like the quintessential, like the Dell blue kind of logo.
correct. Yes.
Yeah, it
Yes.
wasn't working well with the sports theme.
Yes. The blue that they were using was pretty desaturated compared to this one, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
so there's that bringing a vibrancy to the brand and bringing
Mhm,
a youthfulness to it. I've always loved the C and the A, how that marries together. And they
mhm,
just improved it. Like you can see right here,
mhm,
they just they spread them apart a little more and they just redrew it in a way that is just a little more beautiful. It feels a little more natural. The D and the E don't connect anymore. The LON don't connect anymore. It is only the
mhm,
C and A, and that's such a small touch. But if you look at it deeply, it's really about giving the C and the A like their moment to shine, so that like
mhm,
nobody else is touching. It's only these two shapes, and so you look there, and then you look at the icon, and then you recognize this brand from far away. I think there's a lot of psychological tricks that you can start to
true.
play with worldwide audiences, and there's those small triggers that make a big difference.
They've introduced much more imagery as well
Yes,
and videos as well. This looks super fresh. Fresh is the word, I think. That
yes,
now, if I'm a college student, I feel like, okay, this might be for me. I wouldn't feel like, oh, I should
yes,
just click off the website, look at something else.
yes,
They've improved like bigger typography on the website, clean,
yes,
super clean, white space, lots of white space. And again, the Quechua, I think it's written Quechua Quecha, the
correct.
place name.
Okay,
I think that's been done super well with
yeah,
that specific slant. I think they'll just carry the slant everywhere now. But it looks
absolutely,
good, looks specific.
absolutely.
And they've done
I'm
it
rem
on the A itself.
Yes, they have. I'm
Mhm,
reminded a lot of when I take a look at the brand and the kind of visuals that I'm seeing, I'm looking at hiking, running,
mhm,
uh, snowboarding as they show
mhm,
here. So I'm seeing a lot of these sort of mountainous sports that are popping up, and
mhm,
this sort of just free range motor biking as well. And then they're introducing the side of boxing, and they're sort of expanding the palette. And for me, I don't know much about Decathlon except maybe I've seen
Mhm.
its logo here and there and stuff like that. But I'm also surprised that this is the third biggest sports company in the world, and
Mhm.
yet we don't. I have not much knowledge of it. For me, like I would look at Nike, Adidas, New Balance,
Mhm.
Reebok, all of those brands as the top leaders in the world. So I'm very surprised, but um, this is obviously a capturing a different niche and category, and
Right.
it's like you said, it's exploding outwards. The potential of what kind of sports belong to Decathlon now,
Mhm.
and
Business
they've
wise as well,
captured that. That's
I
right.
think they make huge money because of having great margins. I think just
Correct.
from a business case study perspective, Decathlon does so much better than all the other apparent brands that comes to a mind, right? As you said, New Balance, Reebok, or something.
Correct.
I didn't know that Decathlon is the third biggest. Third biggest is huge, but
Correct.
and they don't even have that many stores. 2,000
Yes.
stores is, I mean, it's a huge number.
Yes.
Not that many
That's
as well.
right. That's right.
And even with the imagery, they're showing the cushioning, the uh, small rectangles, then just pushing them in that same logo, that pointed logo, oval logo, L orbit.
Yeah.
Giving a name to the logo is always another fun thing that big agencies do. Slack has a name,
That's
Spotify one has
true.
a name. Super
That's
cool.
true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Even the
Those are
image,
always
even
little
if you look
nice
at the
touches.
imagery, yeah, it's super
Yeah.
like blown out of proportion. They're not
Correct.
showing the entire shoe. I
Correct.
think this is long shorts again, white shorts. Just
Correct.
looks fresh. Yeah, the
Absolutely.
ultralight jacket. Mhm.
Absolutely. I love the
I think this is a great one.
animations.
Mhm.
That's right.
And I love this one, the blurry topography.
Oh, this one.
Yeah,
Oh, that's interesting. I thought this would actually move. It would be a
yeah, yeah.
motion image.
The
That's really
static blurry
interesting.
topography.
Yes. I love that. There's like, okay, when we work on a brand identity project, we tend to maybe put ourselves in a box. Like
Mhm.
when we figure out the logo part, then we're like, okay, great. Now we've opened up the whole Pandora's box. Now we have everything. We have all the answers. But then when we get into actual executions and creating mock-ups and creating posters, creating social media graphics, we sort of start running out of ideas. That's at least something that I have dealt with. I love how they are trying something different here. The colors are there, the blue and the white, the font is there, right? And
Using
this
the
sort of
same O and that L orbit to
right,
signal the E.
exactly.
The blurriness
Exactly.
kind of shows the motion.
Exactly. They're trying all these interesting techniques that
Mhm.
like, okay, now you have the building blocks, but what you can do with this is really an infinite amount.
Mhm.
We're not stopping you. We're creating a sandbox for you, but even within
Mhm.
that sandbox, you can do anything according to your imagination and the brand will never get old. That's what I feel. Like you said, this is fresh. This is a fresh
Mhm.
beginning for Decathlon. I'm excited to be a part of their brand. I'm excited to see this brand pop up in stores near me and actually try out their products. Like look at this one too.
Mhm.
That's it's incredible. That's really cool stuff.
When we're on the topic, let's just cover Wolf Collins as well. That specific W has just taken the world by the storm.
Yes, that's true.
It's super unique. It's wiggly. It shows the flowingness. Previously, it was kind of like too corporate, so to say, and I think that was something that they were feeling as well, positioning wise.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I remember writing a post on that. That kind of just blew up. Even if you
Absolutely.
look at the favicon on the website, it's unique, especially
Correct.
for a brand design company, branded global brand design agency, and
Correct.
I love it. I love it. Really. And the change of the
Correct.
yellow as well. It's a super vibrant yellow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they've introduced something a completely like a flair that feels much younger than maybe they are
Mm-hmm.
as an agency, and that sort of
Mm-hmm.
youthfulness helps attract more youthful brands.
Sure.
Um, and I think it was a really cool move to see that. And again, like you learn from this stuff, like the W
Mm-hmm.
is there, and then it just turns into I don't know if it's trying to spell the rest of the word. I don't think so,
Mm-hmm.
but it's
Yeah.
really it's abstract. It's
I think
something
we
that
should do another
captures. your
Yeah, I think
attention.
we should do another episode on just good global rebranding agencies, like global branding agencies. That would be super fun.
That's right.
Landor,
Global
we'll call
branding
him.
agencies and their logos and
Yeah,
identities. That would be a
we can do
cool
that one.
episode.
That would be cool.
That would be a really
Even if you
cool
think
episode.
about it from a business perspective, it makes sense
Yeah,
because, of course, a Nike won't just be approaching you for a, a rebranding or a refresh every other week. So it would
correct.
have to be approachable to the new age audience, to the newer startups, newer brands coming up. Makes
Mhm.
sense.
Correct.
Right.
So
Moving
that's
on to the next
wonderful.
one.
Let me take you back to Shermayev, Geismar, and Haviv with
Right.
this hidden gem that actually I don't think has entered the world yet on the scale that it will be, because this is
Mhm.
America 250, and I think this is celebrating right in 2026, which is 2 years away. Is
Mhm.
celebrating the Declaration of Independence in the United States when what we call America was really born. Um, and so
Mhm.
America 250 is sort of that campaign and the related artifacts they're going to be created for that. That is going to be, I would say, maybe a year-long celebration. Um, America 250, what I really love, first of all, is the logo that they have created. This sort of ribbon-esque 250.
Mhm.
I love how the two turns into and it stops right there, and then it captures again from the bottom side. Now you see it, and it ends up like creating that
Mhm.
number. I really love this. I think yes, again, one of Shemaev, Geismar, and Haviv, their agency is really good at is logos, simple logos that
Mhm.
capture a lot of feeling and emotion and character, and they're able to do that. I think better than anybody else. I regard them highly because of it. Um, and so that's what we are seeing here. I love how they expand the logo to then turn it into illustrations and iconography, right? And sort of this what I would call like a putting on top of each other these objects. What would you call this sort of effect? Sort of layering?
Like reckon overlap, yeah, overlap
Yeah,
shapes.
overlapping shapes. And it sort of plays on the idea of that ribbon. Um, and so you're
Mhm.
seeing all of that done through. And
Yes.
another great thing about this case study is I love the mock-ups that they used. So there's going to be a mock-up down here as well,
Mhm.
um, where they actually put the America 250 in the US quarter. Um, and this looks really cool.
Mhm.
So this is another thing I think Bratin is pretty underrated is the kind of mock-ups that you're going to show. No matter what budget project that
Right.
you're going to work on, you'll be able to find good, Photoshop based mock-ups that you can plug in the logo and you can show to your clients. So it's always a good effort to go that extra length and put your logo into something that feels like this could be imagined in real life. Like I don't know if they're going to create
Mhm.
actual quarters, um, but this
Mhm.
looks incredible as a
Right.
mock-up, as a showcase of what the logo could be.
And this will be big, like a big event, like a big celebration. And so if we'll go by the logo, I was thinking like the America 250, just if I remove the word America and put 5 circles, does it look like an Olympic logo or does it work for an Olympic logo? Maybe. Kind of
Maybe.
works. And that's the beauty that they've been able to capture that, okay, it's a huge event and you know it. And
Correct.
the implementation, I love it. They could have broken the word 250 into 3 letters, but they didn't. They just kept it one ribbon. That works.
Correct.
And the biggest advantage that they have with this project starting right off the bat is the the super iconic color palette, the red, blue, and white. It's a favorite palette for both Tommy Hilfiger and all other brand designers.
That's right.
So it's super lovely that the work they have been able to produce. Also the mock-ups, it looks organic. They knew that they were not approaching, like some, how do you explain it? They've used like a thick serif font and even lighter sans serif on the apps and on the
Yeah.
other Instagram things.
Yeah.
I think they're working on, they've worked on evergreen things
Correct.
and not just big typography and all that. They knew that
Correct.
this is a once in a lifetime moment, and so the celebration for this has to be appropriate, and finding
Correct.
appropriateness is super difficult. I
Correct.
think they balanced it really, really well. Yeah, this one looks
Correct.
super awesome.
Correct. I think it's super respectful, like you were talking
Mhm.
about. Um, there's so many great mock-ups here. When you see it in the
Considering the
pin,
number of mess ups we have seen with like Paris
of
Olympics and
course.
so many other
Oh,
logos,
of
yeah, this
course.
is a breath of fresh air for sure.
Of course. I just did another a written post on the Olympics of 2028, which is going to happen in
Mhm.
LA, in Los Angeles
Mhm.
specifically. So that is one project that I feel has been done really well. And it might just be
Right,
a
right. I saw the
bias.
post.
It might just be a bias of mine when I look at American graphic design. I prefer that because I've lived with that forever. But there's just a different level of quality. That's something we can talk about maybe as that Olympics gets closer. But like you said, uh, logos like this that have to capture a huge cultural moment, like the Olympics or like celebrating the 250th birthday of the United States, like these are big cultural. These have a lot of cultural weight to them, and if you do it wrong, then people are going to give you a lot of backlash. So what I like about their agency is I think they took this on with a lot of bravery and courage, and they
Mhm.
trusted themselves, they trusted their instincts. I don't think you could walk into this and say this is a safe logo
Right.
by any means. Like this is something that, okay, the way this was drawn is entirely unique. And it's
Mhm.
not like they're using stars and stripes together. It's just stripes. It's the ribbon aspect. If I were to be like, just any agency out there and you asked me and I could give you a cookie cutter project and template, it would probably be just like stars and stripes, a play on the US flag, and boom, you're done. But they've tried something really different without being too scared of what the public would say. I think that's also something that comes to and as an advantage to agencies that are larger because they have more grit, they have more experience. They're less scared about what they're going to put out into the world and what
Mhm.
backlash they might get. So I think
Right.
as even younger designers, I think we can try to think outside the box and try new things a lot
Mhm.
more without worrying that maybe the audience won't love it or the client won't love it. I think it's our job to then sell that, of course, but we have to try things that are outside of the box and bring some new ideas. What's your opinion on
Mhm.
that?
Right. That's absolutely right. I was looking at the kerning on the word America. Of course, it's done well.
Yes, of course.
The target addressable market for this is the entirety of the population, from the oldest
Yeah.
of olds to the youngest of youngs.
Yes.
And it only makes sense when you know where you can experiment and you know how you should experiment. That's what they've
Correct.
done. They knew that
Correct.
typography is is not something that works for everyone
Yeah.
because we've grown up with different design sensibilities. That's why the Tupperware
Yeah.
rebranding was so important for them. So was
Yeah.
the Decathlon. And so with this, they knew that the logo is a place where we can introduce some sort of experimentation or newness or delight. And they did that. And it works
Yeah.
super.
I like that you bring
Especially,
that up. I like that you bring that
yeah.
up, and I want to show this on the screen as you talk about it. Is like
Mhm.
kids that are really young, they're making a beautiful cake out of this logo, and then there's a kid down there that drew the
Right.
250 with a Crayola, and there's also another person that drew it with graffiti paint, right?
Mhm.
So you can
That's why
see.
it's so awesome. It's a single letter. It's almost
Yeah,
like a single letter. It's you can say it symbolizes harmony and unity as
correct, correct.
well. Mhm.
It's bringing it
Again,
together.
the mock-ups that big agencies use are always specific, and I
Yes,
love that.
yes, absolutely. And they're art directed as well, not
Mhm.
just the identity project. But I think another thing that comes out when we work on identity projects that have to be done pretty quickly, we love to spend a lot of time on the logo and then the whole design
Mhm.
process and everything. When it comes to delivery, we don't spend enough time on
Mhm.
mockups. We don't spend enough
Right.
time on really making the logo and the whole identity itself visualize well enough, especially maybe adding motion graphics to it in some way, which these big agencies always do that. and they always go the extra lengths to not just say that, okay, we put all this time and effort into creating the thing, but we also put a lot of time and effort into presenting it to you in a way that you would be able to digest it. Uh, you would be able to imagine it, how it looks in the real world. And
With
so
this mock-up
that's,
as well, if we'll go up a bit.
yeah,
Yeah, with this one, they've used the ribbon as if it's a huge flag. It's a
correct.
huge long-running flag to
Right.
symbolize the motion from 1776 to 2026. That's super cool.
Exactly.
They knew
Exactly.
what they were going for, of course. Yeah,
Exactly.
this is done superbly well.
Exactly. I love this project. And I can't wait to see it pop up more locally as
Right.
2026 gets closer. So
Mhm.
I'll be sending you more I'll send you photos if I see anything
Sure.
like this pop up, and I'll let you know where I've seen it and how it looked. How it's
Right.
executed as well in the real
Mhm.
public space is going to be an important deal too. Um,
All right. Because
so
that won't be done by them. So that's a different
that's
story.
right.
Let's see if it
That's
works
right.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing. A big conversation for another day, I'd say.
Right. Right.
Let's go to Topo Chico to finish up here.
Yes.
And this is another one that you chose.
Yes. So this is something that, frankly, I have no idea about, and that's why
Yeah.
I chose it because I
Okay.
would have zero bias. And
Yes.
is this? I was on the Landor website trying to figure out the Tupperware branding. Didn't find it, to be honest. And so
Of
I
course.
was going through the work category, and it was just visually stunning work. I was on the Landor website trying to figure out the Tupperware branding. Didn't find it, to be honest. And so
Of
I
course.
was going through the work category, and it was just visually stunning work. But
Yes.
when you go in, it's super appropriate, even with this one. So Topo Chico, apparently, I think it's a Mexican-based, like a alcohol brand,
Correct.
right? If we move up, I think it'll say it as well. Okay, so it's
So
sparkling water
it's
brand,
yes, it's sparkling water burn. Correct.
right? It's again 125 years old, so huge
Correct.
heritage. And
Correct.
the illustrations, they caught my eye completely.
Yes.
They were done so well, and even with the logo, if you look at the logo, we have our common notions of the logo should be clean. The logo should be, there should be a slap on test. The logo
Yeah.
should be recognizable and memorable so that a person
Yeah.
can scribble it 5 seconds later. All
Yeah.
that works, all that works. But
Yeah.
with this one, you won't be able to draw it 5 seconds later, but I'll
Yeah.
show it to you 5 years later. You'll be able to recognize it's Topo Chico.
Yes.
It's so unique, that yellow on red with the white, like the white, what do you say, drop shadow?
Yeah, I would say a drop shadow, but this is more of
Right.
a top shadow.
A top shadow. Yeah, top shadow.
Yeah.
Specifically that color of
Yeah.
green. I think you can call it like a lime. It's not lime. Emerald
It's
green, so
it's
to say,
it's
or
very
a light
minty
sand
and
green.
emerald. Yes.
Very
Emerald
minty, yeah.
and minty. Yeah.
And they've been able to capture that so beautifully. The green,
Correct.
yellow, and red. If you think about it in your mind, making them work sounds like a nightmare. Green
Yeah.
and red itself just doesn't work well. And then you have
Yes.
yellow, that was saturated one. But again,
Yes.
they knew what they
That's
were
right.
going for. And that's
That's right.
where the reason I chose this is because when I was looking through all these mockups, all of this screen entirely, if
Yeah.
you'll stay there for a second,
Yeah.
yeah, on the top one,
Okay. This one.
yeah. You see all the visuals, everything that you look at, you'll feel like you're on the streets and you're seeing this. You'll
Correct.
feel you'll never feel like this doesn't exist.
Yes.
You'll feel so close to it with that bottle cap, the bubbles, the soda. It feels refreshing, but it feels cultural.
Correct.
And they've been able to do that with the typography as well. And the thing that stood out firstly was the research. I'm pretty sure they have done
Yeah.
heavy research on getting the cultural influence right and the implementation of it.
Yeah.
And that's why I chose this. I think this is done superbly because the moments that you can fail are huge. You can mess up with the typography, making it look kind of, misappropriated. You can mess up on the contrast. You can mess up on the logo legibility. They have
Yeah.
handled all of it superbly well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the versatility in this. Here you see, I think this is one of the more real life physical
Mm-hmm.
image. And then
Right.
right next to that,
This
you
one.
can
Yeah.
imagine the illustration and
Mm-hmm.
them together on one screen, not 1 second they look like they don't match or they don't
Mm-hmm.
belong together. Everything just works together. A real life 3D mock-up of the bottle can live with the illustration 2D, 3D flat version of it.
Mm-hmm.
and it all works together. I love that aspect of it too. Again, just like
They've kept that
there's
serve cold monogram.
correct. There's so
That
much
wasn't
of
needed, but they just did it. Yes, so much of
that's
character.
right. That's right. So much of character. I would love to wear something like this. I would love to have
Hmm.
something like this. Like this tells me like I want branded merch like this. Um,
Hmm.
it's incredible. I love how they're unapologetic with the amount of yellow that they're using. Like I
Right.
think I don't know if this might be the brand guidelines playbook. I think it is.
Hmm.
Um, I imagine what their website could look like too. Are they just as unapologetic with the yellow? But again, like look at that. Like
Hmm.
that's really cool. You feel that sparkling bubbles coming out of the water, and it all comes together to build the logo. And then you have the top shadow, as we'll call it.
Hmm.
Um,
That I think is the riskiest decision, right?
it
In this day
was,
and age, if you're going for a rebranding and you don't
of
change
course,
that top shadow or you just keep it,
of
like
course,
talking about it is difficult. Even on
of
the
course.
that illustration, I think it's a logo illustration on that
Yes,
package. Like
yes,
someone's drinking from some holy lake or something. Right? I think that's
correct.
the heritage.
Yes.
That's super awesome, super awesome.
I think it, if I'm not wrong, it has where is this in Mexico, right?
In
So
Mexico, yeah.
it has a heritage in Mexico, and the culture of
Mm.
Mexico you can see coming through
Right,
in the illustrations in that illustration that you talked about. Uh, this reminds me a lot of old school retro signage, which were actually
right,
hand
right.
painted, right? They were hand painted, especially within the United States. That was a really big part of where kind of the beginnings of where logos came from. It's sort of
Hmm.
those hand painted aesthetics. That's why you had a lot of the drop shadows, right?
Hmm.
This sort of thing is what an actual
Right.
person who was painting this sign would do to make it stand out because you didn't have neon lights, you didn't have all that
Mhm.
other stuff.
If
So
we
you would
stick to
do
this one
things.
just a sec,
Yes.
if you look at it, there's so many cards, right? But
Yeah.
the cards are numbered, and the mock that it's showing, it's written there, like
Yeah.
the logo, the label, the rituals, the bottle. That's
That's
super cool.
correct.
That's something that we never do. If anything, we never do that.
That's correct.
But
Yeah.
they've been able to do it so
Yeah.
fun, such a fun way.
It subtly fits in. Like I thought
Mhm.
this was a playing card from far away, but then you
Right?
you reference that, and this is actually just them presenting the logo
Hmm.
and what a lot of the things that are part of it. And like we've been talking about, the top shadow of the white. I mean, red on yellow works really well. There's contrast, but then
Hmm.
you introduce that white, and then the yellow and white together, they kind of bleed together. It's
Hmm.
harder to make that contrast happen, and the fact that they went with that and they owned it is a big kudos to them for trying
Now that
something
I
a little
see it,
bit different.
right? If we'll go up to the previous one again on the
Yeah,
top, yeah, the top shadow kind of you'll see the bottle cap on the left of the logo on
yeah.
one card. I think the top shadow represents that shine on a steel cap,
Yes, it does.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
It does. It represents that shine on the bottle
That
as
sheen
well,
on the bottle, yeah,
right? Right? That's
yeah,
exactly what it is. And that especially you see
nice.
that in the final motion graphics, which
Mhm.
is like, okay, first the bubbles pop up and then there's that shine, right? And
Mhm.
that just brings everything together rather than it just being a flat, red
Mhm.
logo on yellow. And it feels a
It
lot
keeps
like
that personality, yeah.
right? It feels a lot like McDonald's maybe or like
Mhm.
ketchup and mustard. But they do that extra bit to give it that
Mhm.
extra flavor, to give it that real life quality to it. And I would call this a little bit less minimalist, more maximalist,
Mhm.
even in the
True.
subtlest way, because drop shadows are something that I think we frown upon too much nowadays. We
Mhm.
don't like to use, unless we're doing something based in UI, we don't like to use drop shadows in logo at all.
True.
But this is a flattened version of a drop shadow, not one that breaks any rules, but it just is an added effort. Now, if I were to, change this to maybe black and white, then maybe the
Mhm.
logo doesn't work as well. And
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
it just has to be a flattened version of it where it's just black and white. But and maybe the shadow only exists in this format. but that's okay. I think that's okay. And we don't give ourselves enough the benefit of doubt to try things like
Mhm.
that, which is something that they've done here.
I think they just presented the mock-ups with playing cards. That's possible. Later took a
That's
photo
right.
of it.
Oh yeah, of
That would be
course.
fun to the board of directors.
Of course. Oh, I love playing cards. I love customized playing cards.
Mhm.
I would love to like have my own agency create playing cards that were customized to our logo and everything, and then we
Mhm.
just sell that as a product. And, why not act as a sort of brand like Topo Chico that becomes sort of a
Mhm.
cultural phenomenon. I think this is one thing with the brand. Like they're not just selling sparkling water anymore,
Right.
right, Bratin? This
We
is this
didn't
is
even
an
talk about the product,
we haven't,
right? It's
not at
just
all. I don't even remember the time that I've drank Topo Chico, and I'm excited
Mhm.
by this. But just the fact of this experience and this overall, just the cultural impact of what the brand is, makes me want to buy this stuff before the actual water.
Mhm.
So that's funny enough. Like, look at all this. They have ice buckets. You know, they have coasters. They have everyththing, and
They're breaking so many rules as well,
aprons as
right?
well.
This one,
Yeah, of course.
if you look here, there's just so many fonts, so many typefaces. There's the Topo
Yes,
Chico logo, the special on-premise, the numbers,
that's right.
but it works because Landor has been able to make it work. They probably
That's
worked with
right.
hundreds of iterations, maybe
That's
more.
right. That's right. That's right.
This looks again making something look appropriate is super difficult
Yeah.
because there's no clear line to follow,
Yeah.
and that's where big agencies shine.
That's right.
I really love this one.
I wonder what the original logo was, and I don't think it was that different. Um,
Yeah, I think it
right.
was
So
that.
that's what it was originally. And
Mhm.
obviously that needed an upgrade. And again,
Mhm.
like it's not like they changed the whole thing, right?
Right.
But they evolved it. This is another one of
Mhm.
those evolution examples that are done really well. And these evolutions happen very well with like uh companies and brands that have been here for a long time.
True.
When you're on the startup end, then you have like a scrappy logo that someone on Fiverr just created really quickly. And then
Right.
when you get that project on your plate and you're like, okay, what do I do with this now? Do I keep this original form or do I just do something different? Um, and that's always an important question to ask. I always like to evolve what was already there. And I think there's
Mhm.
a really great quality to that because that tells us that we're respecting the history of the brand, right?
Mhm.
It's the same thing you shared in National Geographic
Right.
Decathlon as well. We're respecting the heritage that was already there. We're not trying to change anything because over time as well, people get really involved and emotionally attached to these logos. And it becomes really expensive to change that, right? And to
Mhm.
have them create new emotional attachment to a completely different symbol, completely different logo. Stuff like this only needs an evolution. And if you, Bratin, were to ask me like, what is the price tag of this project? I
Right.
don't know. I don't know what it
Yeah,
was, but they
I don't know.
paid that much to do this bit of change
Mhm.
on top of the other stuff, of course, but at surface level, you could ask yourself that very shallow question of how much did I pay and what did I get out of it, right?
Right. Makes sense. And I love that they haven't stripped out anything. They wanted
Yes,
to keep the chill and that ice, so they had that top shadow, as we as we're calling it. Then they
correct.
kept it's an Aztec princess apparently.
Okay,
That illustration, yeah.
I see.
They have kept that on the bottle,
Yeah,
and so they didn't interfere that with the logo. They have kept it on top as in like a label.
yeah,
That
yes,
works again. So implementation and appropriateness, big agencies know how to crack it, and I
yes,
think they do it based on, of course, their experience, but also, of course, with huge number of explorations, some petition. And they will
correct,
have focus groups. Those help.
correct.
Yeah. But this is something that brand designers can get inspired by.
Yes, absolutely. And like you talked about, the way that they mixed green, yellow, and red
Mhm.
together is in itself, it is a case study to look at. How do you
Right.
make
It's a talent.
colors that colors that are challenging, colors that red and green is Christmas. That's what
Mhm.
I always think of. But using that within a brand aspect and not making it look like something completely different is a really challenging thing that they
Right.
accomplished here. Um, so
Cool.
this has been a wonderful conversation.
Yes.
I'm gonna, yeah, this has
I
been a
thoroughly
wonderful
loved it. Yeah.
conversation.
It
Yeah,
was,
this
it
is,
was mind bending at times.
we have to do more of these because
Sure.
we've just in one run we went over 6 different case studies and each single one of them taught us something different. And I know I learned a
Absolutely.
lot from this
Mhm.
conversation. So I hope all of our audience members learned a lot as well. Um, and I thank you all for watching, for being here. I'm looking forward to the next one and to the next episode
Yes.
of this. And I'm planning on doing a written version of this as well. And I'll let Bratin do his 3 and I'll do my 3.
Yes. Absolutely.
So you guys can have our big takeaways, maybe in a bite-sized written format.
Right.
But
For that,
yes.
follow our LinkedIn as well.
That's right. Follow us on LinkedIn, where I've also gotten on Instagram. I'm on Twitter.
Right.
I'm on Threads too, Bratin. I just opened a
Nice.
Threads account. I'm a little bit late to the party, but it's fun there. There's a lot of designers there, apparently.
Mhm.
So shout out to everyone on Threads, on TikTok as well. Be everywhere all at once.
Right.
That's what we have to do. Okay.
Yes. Superb.